Many imagine the American founding as a clean break, a group of brilliant men locking themselves in a room in 1776 and inventing democracy from scratch. In reality, starting a new country is a logistical nightmare. You need a functional instruction manual for an executive process, a justice system, and a legislature that can actually govern on day one. The American system emerged as a complex historical remix. The framers built the government using three distinct sources: centuries of English legal tradition, radical Enlightenment-era philosophy, and decades of gritty colonial survival. Recognizing how these three parts fit together explains exactly why the United States government operates with the specific rules and limitations it uses today. Early colonists arrived with Judeo-Christian values already embedded in their culture. The Christian Bible introduced the idea that the law must apply equally to everyone, including kings, and established early rules for fair trials. In 1215, these values hit a breaking point in England. Nobles had grown tired of King John's heavy taxes and his cruel treatment of prisoners. They forced him to sign the Magna Carta. This document established the principle of limited government, the legal reality that a monarch's power has boundaries and is not absolute. By 1689, the English Bill of Rights pushed those limits further. It stripped the monarchy of absolute authority, requiring the consent of the people's representatives in Parliament to pass laws, levy taxes, or maintain an army. In the 1700s, American colonists viewed these legal protections as their birthright. The British king, however, saw the colonists merely as subjects of the empire who did not share the same rights as those living in Britain. This specific disagreement over inherited rights drove the colonies toward open rebellion. While legal arguments simmered, an intellectual revolution took hold in Europe. Thinkers began dismantling divine right, the ancient belief that leaders received their authority directly from God. Philosophers proposed a social contract where people surrender freedom for collective security. John Locke argued everyone is born with natural rights to life, liberty, and property. If a government fails to protect those rights, the contract is broken, and people can rebel. Charles Louis de Montesquieu added a structural solution. He argued that liberty only survives if government functions, ruling, judging, and lawmaking, are separated into different branches. These philosophers gave the Founding Fathers the intellectual ammunition to turn a dispute over taxes into a justified moral crusade. Across the Atlantic, the American colonies served as a practical laboratory where these theories were tested for sheer survival. In 1620, pilgrims anchored off the New England coast realized they needed rules to survive. They drafted the Mayflower Compact, establishing an early American precedent for written, self-governing constitutions. Over the century, the colonies operated with their own governors, courts, and elected legislatures, putting separation of powers into daily practice long before the Revolution. This colonial democracy had severe limitations, intentionally excluding women, enslaved persons, and anyone who did not own property. Despite these flaws, 150 years of managing their own roads, schools, and laws meant the American colonies were functionally independent long before the first shot of the war was fired. By 1776, a massive collision occurred. British absolute authority slammed into a century of colonial self-rule, Enlightenment logic, and English common law. The Declaration of Independence perfectly synthesized Locke's natural rights with specific legal grievances to justify a complete split from the crown. When the new nation was formed, its framework relied on the centuries of trial, error, and hard-fought philosophy explored in these three pillars. These foundational documents are not magical, self-executing pieces of paper. They are historical tools designed to manage human conflict. This inherited social contract requires continuous maintenance, debate, and active participation today.